Hello, I'm very, very happy today because I get to speak to one of my favorite people on this planet, Anja Spilker. We have had the pleasure of working together for a number of years now. It was meant to be a year-long working relationship for Cholula in 2020, but it turned into like 3.5, and we're still in touch. And just honestly, an absolute pleasure to work with you and your team, Zaloa Languages in Mexico. You're all just wonderful people. And yeah, you are always going to be dear to me. And it's so great to have you here to have a talk about some of the things you do that make you this strong, powerful, knowledgeable, and experienced woman that you are in the world of language. Thank you, Anja.
Oh, wow, what an introduction. Wow, thank you so much for your kind words. And yeah, I think it's just what we're going to talk about is actually such an interesting topic and about purpose. And yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, I mean, so just to let you all know, I messaged Anja a few days ago and just said, look, there's some aspect of your work that I think is just super intriguing. And I'd love to have a chat about it because I'm sure and hope that many of you out there will also find it really interesting too. And that is we learn languages, and for many of us, it's a hobby. But for a number of us, actually, it's an opportunity to go and experience life in a different country, to get employment, to get obviously economic benefits from that too, in terms of being able to support families and to make life happen. And this is one thing that Anja also does a lot of in Zaloa Languages. And Anja, tell me, how did that process start with getting into helping people to learn language to go and get a job?
Yeah. Zaloa Languages was born in 2015, and the initial idea was very different to what it is today. And so how it all started is that I lived in Mexico back then, and yeah, wanted to build this language learning platform for everyone. When you start a business, you want to do things for everyone, right? So I started adding more and more languages to the platform. And then during the pandemic, I think was a little bit this pivot. I think German had always been our strongest language at Zaloa. Most of our clients wanted to learn German. But it was never the idea to focus specifically on that. And then during the pandemic, for some reason, it felt like every country and every single person in Latin America wanted to learn German. And so this is then when we started this community out of Zaloa, which the community is called Deutsch mit Zaloa. So it's specifically for German, and not just German, but specifically German for Spanish speakers. And yeah, it was in 2020 when this community started to grow. And we've had already been working with a couple of companies in Germany before. As you might know, Germany is facing a huge problem. I mean, it's not the only country, but in Germany, it is pretty bad, the situation. There is not enough skilled workforce. So meaning professions such as nurses, doctors, many others, engineers as well. Mm-hmm. And so they need to hire from other countries. And yeah, I mean, we all know that most people that learn German with us, we knew that it was not just a hobby for them. It was because they wanted to have, to really live an experience moving to the country. And moving to another country is very challenging. We can get into this a little later, but I truly believe that in order for all this to succeed, to help someone not just find a job, but really integrate in the culture. The German culture is so different. Language is the key. And so for people who learn lots of languages, it's sometimes maybe hard to imagine that again, but the people we work with, they often feel they have this feeling of oh, I'm not good at learning languages. I can't learn a language because I had English in school and it didn't work out. but it has nothing to do with their German learning process. And this is this first switch that we have to create with them, actually.
I mean, it's almost like a psychological thing as well, right? It's learned behavior and stuff.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, how do you tackle that in your courses, for example, and when you're dealing with people to sort of insert the culture into the process, and also insert the psychological change, the mindset change and shift into that process?
So different ways of doing that. First of all, the content itself. The content itself talks a lot about German culture, but also the shift of German culture. So we have a lot of reading and listening exercises on our platform that talk about typical things in Germany, and also how it's changing, how Germany is becoming more and more international as well, how more and more people from all over the world come in, and so this is something very important. The content itself, like the way what they learn German with, but then also for everyone who is part of this program of preparing to work in Germany, they have one-on-one sessions with German tutors, and so it's one-on-one sessions, 30 minutes, 3 to 4 times per week. It's pretty intense. And that, like speaking to them and practicing Germans, the speaking part with them is also as part of the preparation. And then from a B1 level on, because they have to pass the B1 or B2, and then they can start the whole visa process. And then they usually also start an academy, which prepares them for the specific profession, to learn about the specific profession for 2 or 3 months, and how work is done in Germany. Like the work for a nurse in Latin America is not, I mean, similar, but it's not the same. It's different in Germany, how it's done. And so, they also have to adapt to that, how things are done, how work is done. And the contact. Then we also have communities, and I think that's one of the strongest factors as well. We have a huge Facebook group for nurses, for example, international nurses living in Germany, and we have meetings there. We have events with them, and that's also the exchange. That's also the moment they can, let everything out, and also talk about what they struggle with. And then we also collaborate with embassies, and some of the embassies of some countries do a pretty good job when it comes to, talking to psychologists, because it's not just this language learning process, but also this immigration part.
Yeah,
I think we've all lived that. It is challenging to move to another country. It is.
Yeah, well, there's so much involved, isn't there? Because I mean, we think of learn German, get a job, but it's actually a lot more to it. And I mean, obviously my experience of you has always been you're very grounded, and you're also somebody I always see as kind of a rock. You like to inhabit the whole space that you're in, and sort of feel and understand and feel like almost like the vibrations of the things around you. And I think that really comes across in what you're describing with what you're doing in the work with these people as well. I think having that foundation of a group, a community, is super important. And talking about the psychological issues of changing such a drastic environment from one to another in such a way, and then working in it and living in it to be happy and successful is quite the challenge. So I mean, congratulations on setting up a community, first of all. But I mean, one thing you did mention, and it's kind of part of my background as well, is this whole idea of immigration and dealing with embassies and things like that, which, you know, I in a past life I've also had experience of. How has that been for you, and navigating those waters? I mean, from the different countries, because you're talking about the whole of Latin America, which isn't just one country. So you've got lots of embassies, lots of stakeholders. How has that been for you, sort of navigating those waters?
Challenging. Let's be honest, it's not always easy, especially because, I really... So my world, I think, is the startup world, where things move fast, where people build technology to move things forward, to make an impact. And then sometimes working with other institutions, it has nothing to do with moving fast, for example. That's one of the things. And so adapting to that is also like speaking different languages. I mean, even if it's mostly in Spanish or German, my work, but it's like kind of speaking different languages because those people are different. So yeah, talking to institutions or working with institutions is a challenge also. Yeah, because you have to adapt to the way they do things, permissions you need. Yeah, it is definitely challenging, but it's also a lot of fun because I see the impact. And I think that's all that matters. What we always say is we do language learning with a purpose. And so for us, the purpose goes beyond just learning the language. And so if it goes beyond, then we also have to do something beyond, right? And so it might not be normal for a language learning platform to do all those things, like building the communities or being in touch with companies and bringing people together. But we really see ourselves as a bridge between all those different institutions and countries. Yeah, I mean, and we're learning every day.
Because what I'm kind of hearing, I mean, this must have been for you as well, sort of an evolution of teaching languages is one thing, but teaching languages and then almost have this responsibility of for this goal of someone's entire life to change and move. That can happen as a teacher, I guess, on some level, but you really have kind of lived this. How has that been for you? I mean, dealing with that kind of really real reality of what you're doing.
I think if someone had asked me back in 2015, when I started Zaloa, do you want to do that in 2023? Do you want to be responsible for a team and for people moving to another country and struggling with your home culture? And do you want to do all that? I would have said, no way. To be honest, no way. But I think so I very much trust that everything that happens to us in life is meant to be. And so it has never been my plan. I think also from a business perspective, the pivots that we had, like the business model and everything, it was all just meant to be. So it's all a learning, and we're constantly changing and adapting. So yeah, I think it's been a process. It's been an interesting journey, I would say. But I'm glad. I'm glad it went this way, but it is sometimes challenging because when you think about, I never want to overpromise things, right? So first of all, when all those Western countries are right now hiring from other countries, we have to be very careful, right? First of all, we have to see in that other country is, for example, in the case of nurses, do they have a lack of nurses in that country? Because if so, we can't hire there, right? We can't tell people, okay, go to Germany because you're going to earn more money. And so that's also, something, a responsibility that we have. And then also, I think it's very, very important. We just had last night an info session with clinics in Germany and candidates from Latin America. And we had about 100 candidates in that session. And in our sessions, we never promise any candidate from Latin America, oh yeah, you're going to have the perfect life in Germany, because it's just not true. There are a lot of things that don't work in Germany, and starting with having good Wi-Fi, right? To other things as well. And so it's just not true that it's going to be a paradise. And I think this is something that we have to make clear, and we have to be very brutally honest about that. And also sharing with people the challenges that they're going to face moving to another country. And I think that's a very, very big responsibility when you build a business, because it's not just it's an impact for the rest of their life. And this is very important, and we always have to remember that.
Yeah. And I think this is the thing, you know, you're offering an option for people to try and people to make a change if they want to. And over the years, you must have had experiences in the community and people you've dealt with negative experiences and also very positive experiences. Have any of those stories stood out to you that you would sort of like to share as a warning or even an encouragement? Both sides, I think, are important, like you said. What would you share from those experiences?
Yeah. So I think having or being part of a community with a similar story is important because it encourages you, but also be careful to not adapt the opinion of others. Think about, is that really my opinion? Is that really my experience right now? Or do I adopt it because others told me to think that way? So as an example, we have this community of international nurses in this case. And then we want to open this space also, a safe space for people to just complain, because sometimes it is also necessary to complain, right? It is what it is. But I think it's also important to always remember complaining or like to just keep complaining doesn't help us. And so if you're surrounded by people complaining about how Germans don't let new people into their circles, then this is going to stick. And this is going to be your mindset. And you don't want that to be your mindset. So also try then to also talk to others who have different experiences and try to also switch that and think, okay, what can I do now to change that, right? What can I do to make friends in Germany, to find a new group and listen to new suggestions? I think that's like very important. Yeah, from my experience, is something that the community is great because it's a huge support, but also try to stick to your own experiences and listen to what your heart tells you. That's very important.
That's a really important message, I think, for so many areas of life. It's a wise lesson that you've shared there. This idea of negative self-talk and creating echo chambers of negativity are things that we should try and avoid to at least give ourselves a fighting chance at success and to thrive and to be happy in an environment. I guess whether or not that environment is to do with learning, working, living in a new place, whatever it is, these things hold true, right? It's if we hear that this thing's bad constantly, then we're always looking for that negative stuff, and that's what we notice most. I think it's possibly like online when you hear creators talking about the videos they put out and they focus in on the like 5 negative comments in a sea of this is amazing, I love what you're doing, I love the work, but they focus in and almost that plays on their minds, and the videos that they often make replies to will be the negative comments, which if you look at it in the sort of the whole swathe of lovely things that people write, it's actually quite telling, I think, of us as a species, as humans.
Yeah, or in general, learning a language, right? We focus on, especially when the level is not yet a B2, C1 fluent level, we focus on the things often when we want to speak. We focus on what we don't know yet instead of focusing on what we know already. And so I think that's very, very important to always see both sides. And we also have many beautiful and even funny stories. It's sometimes, like cultural misunderstandings or or sometimes there's like little like I had one nurse and she was telling me, whenever I ask a patient in the hospital, haben Sie Schmerzen? He doesn't understand me. And she's Mexican and she told me that in Spanish. And I was like, so what do you say in German? And then she just mispronounced the Z in the word Schmerzen. And I was like, that's why they don't understand. So it's just this very simple trick sometimes, right? And then I told her that I was like, listen, it's more like the TS sound, so you have to do it a little stronger. And then the next day she called me and she was like, today I had the first day in my life that a patient understood the question, haben Sie Schmerzen? And so, you know, like, it's sometimes what I mean with that, it's sometimes those little shifts, like just understanding the pronunciation of Schmerzen makes, you know, a complete new experience. And yeah, I think like that's also very important learning, that everything can change, and sometimes it's just those small things in life.
I think that's a very nice way to end this interview. Small things make changes.
Yeah.
And often they're the things that we overlook because we think they're insignificant, but they can make the world of difference, because every small change makes this incrementation of a more positive future and experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know this on the Berlin wall? There's this many small people in many small places. And then I don't remember, but it ends with make a difference to the world or something like that. And they're in English and German on the wall in Berlin.
Yeah, and it's true.
Yeah.
Every brick, every individual brick helps to build a wall, and every single brick you take away helps to take down a wall.
Yes.
So, yeah, thank you so much, Anja, for sharing this. I wish you all the very best for the future with this work. I think it's really valuable, and it shows us the real difference languages can make.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for the invitation, and I can't wait for this year's Polyglot Conference. I really can't wait. Very much looking forward.
Take care.